Welcome to The Lock Shop with Nielsen and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
What is going on, cool bettors and lock shoppers? Welcome to the show. Huss and P. Greggy with you. Been doing some digging. Good news on Dusty. He's coming around. He'll be in the booth here in the Peg for the West Final on Saturday, barring any setbacks, and then back on EST next week is the plan, and back here on the Lock Shop. So wishing him well. Hope he's feeling better, and maybe we'll even see him down here in the Peg. We've got a lot to get to today. Big slate of games in the National Hockey League. We've got a Thursday nighter to get to, and a little line update for everything going on Sunday. Pat Gregoire, how are you, my friend? What's going on?
Doing good, man. I don't know what it is. Normally for me, it's Monday Night Football, and then it's a quick couple of days, and then boom, you're right back to the NFL. It feels like it's been forever since that Monday night game. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it was the election. I don't know if it's because we had a no NBA games on Tuesday, and it's been a weird NHL slate where it's like it's only one or two games, and then it's a massive slate, but it's here. And it's probably one of the better NFL Thursday night games that we've had in a couple of weeks. I'm kind of surprised with the line. At the same time, kind of not surprised. But you said it. There's a lot more that we do have to get to. I could not believe how many NHL games we have tonight. It is a massive slate.
Yeah, we'll definitely roll into the NHL slate. Good night last night. I think we're rolling with the plays of the day. Got Washington. And I said, okay, explain to me why Nashville, playing the way that they played so far, going into Washington, who is 8-3, why Washington was just, a slight favorite at -120. That didn't make sense to me. And we kind of said, okay, do we need Jake out here for the fish meter? Or we just say, hey, it's still early, and we're still thinking of Nashville as the offseason champions and not a 4-7-1 team. And we're still thinking of Washington, a team that only cares about one thing, and that's Ovi's record and not winning hockey games. Both of those things have been kind of proven to be wrong so far this season. Washington's rolling. I think, just quickly on the Caps, Pat, I think that those young players that were involved, like Dylan Strome's having a monster season. He was probably available in your fantasy league as a free agent at the beginning of the year if you're in a league, in a pool. He had 17 points, I think, going into last night. But I'm just thinking, you remember what that team was able to do in clawing their way into the playoffs when they were basically left for dead with about 8 games left. Now, listen, Detroit blew it, Pittsburgh blew it, but they actually did get to that point. And I think that Spencer Carberry has, they brought in Dubois, who hasn't really done much offensively, but he's a guy with so much to prove. There is a little bit of a no one believes in us narrative to the Caps right now. And Ovi's feeling it right now. I think the young guys they've got there are sort of bringing him up right now. And this is a team that, at least at this point in the season, is playing really competitively each and every night and is finding a way to win games. And then you got Nashville. And as I say, we jokingly raised the banner for them in the summer. Yeah. We always announce and declare an off-season champions. And listen, they got Shea and they got Marchessault and they got Stamkos. But with all that comes a lot of, a lot of change. It takes a lot of the other guys in the room to sort of adapt, people playing in different spots and different lines. And sometimes it doesn't just happen overnight. And that's a team right now, when you look at the rest of the Central Division, with what the Jets have done, with what Minnesota's done early on, knowing that the Avalanche are there, they're dead last in the Central Division right now, Pat. And listen, do I think Nashville will be a lot better in the second half of the season? Absolutely. But we've talked long before. You stink it up in the first couple months, and you're in 6th or 7th in your division and having to jump 4 or 5 teams for a playoff spot around U.S. Thanksgiving. It can lead to a lost season pretty early.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, because I saw yesterday, I wish I had it in front of me. I don't. But it basically, based off the math at least, Like the Jets, for example, have essentially assured themselves a playoff spot as long as they don't fall off a cliff here. If they go 500 for the rest of the year, they're pretty much safe. Same with the Minnesota Wild. It is unbelievable. We talk about that, like the percentages of teams that are in the postseason by even just American Thanksgiving. The chances are, if you're near the top, leading your division, whatever it may be, the chances are pretty high that you can stay there. And the same could be for those bottom feeding teams. Those teams, it's so hard to get out of the basement with the 3-point system in today's NHL. It's crazy. 3 points on the line. It really, really is tough. But I wanted to get back to those Capitals for a second because yes, it has been the young guys. Sure, of course, Alex Ovechkin has been, a machine. It's awesome to see that, he's really gunning for that record. Dylan Strome finally coming into his own. Let's not forget, this is a 3rd overall pick. He is a guy that was projected to be a superstar in this league. Is he ever going to be a superstar? Probably not, but he can still be a damn good hockey player. Alexei Protas has been really, really nice. This big Belarusian kid, man, like he has been awesome. 12 points in 12 games, fit really nice on that first line. But you mentioned Dubois. It's that second line that I've been really impressed with. Dubois has been like, you're not getting much defensively or offensively out of him. Tom Wilson's been okay. But the Ajax Ontario boy, Connor McMichael, what an unreal season this guy has had. And if you have been betting him to get a point most nights, you're doing quite fine because for whatever reason, we're getting severe plus money each and every night for this guy to get a point. And he has 13 points in 12 games. Him and Ovechkin are tied in the lead for goals on that team with 8. He is completely driving that second line. And in today's NHL, man, like you basically, to be a top team, you can't just have one top line. You need 2 top lines. Like you need a line that can be a top line on average to bad teams. Look at all the teams that have successes. Because if that top line isn't going, well, you have this, we'll call it 1A, 1B. Well, 1B now is going. That's the case with the Toronto Maple Leafs. They have 2 outstanding top lines that could probably be a first line on other teams. The unfortunate thing for the Toronto Maple Leafs is their secondary scoring on line 3 and line 4 is what has been the Achilles heel of this team. So if you can have that secondary scoring, look at a team like Florida, look at a team like Vegas. Those are the teams that have success. And look at the Jets. They've got depth scoring too. So, and look how good they have been. It's just kind of the way the NHL is going. And I think this Capitals team, a lot of people just look at that Caps team. Well, look at all the teams they beat. They shouldn't have been in the playoffs. They got lucky. Well, I think they are now really starting to take form into a team that's not just about Ovechkin getting this record. They're a damn good hockey club, and they're proving it so far this year.
Listen, they're the Eastern Conference no one believes in us team. Like if you looked at playoff predictions at the beginning of the season, I would bet less than 5% of quote unquote experts or pundits had the Caps in. It was like, hey, great. They somehow made it last year, but New Jersey's going to get in there. A bunch of other teams. Who's going to come out? Well, obviously Washington, because frankly, they didn't belong in the playoffs last year. I mean, there was sort of 7 playoff caliber teams. They got in. Right now they're playing at it. And listen, you mentioned the Jets. Just for a minute on this. The Jets have played 13 games. They have 5 players that are at a point a game or better. And they have 11 players in double digits in points already. Like Mason Appleton is 11th in scoring on the Jets. He's got 4 goals, 6 assists in 10 games. I mean, they're getting it everywhere. And that Scheifele and Velarde and Kyle Connor are going to score. And Kyle Connor's been absolutely brilliant. He had a point in every game up until the Utah game, leading the way with 19. The second line, if you will, I mean, realistically, the Adam Lowry line has sort of been the second line. I mean, they're probably the best checking line or the best third line in the league. By far. They're scoring too. Lowry's got 11 points in 13 games. Appleton's got 10 in 13. and Nito Niederreiter's got 12 and 13. And those guys are playing the toughest matchups against the best line on the other team every single night, and they're living in the other team's end. I mean, their expected goals is anywhere from 72 to 74% so far this season. But that second line, which was a bit of a concern early on, Cole Perfetti missed some of camp. He had a slow start. You've got a guy in Vlad Nemetstikov who's certainly not a prototypical top 6 center in the league. And then Nikolai Ehlers. And Ehlers is driving the entire thing. And the club's been absolute point machines. And then you mix in a power play that's clicking at 44% so far this season. And you can see why the numbers are where they are. Well, I tell you what, we're on this already. Why don't we keep going with the hockey talk? We'll put some we'll go over the odds tonight. We'll put together a ticket or two, and then we can kind of dive into the Thursday nighter and some of the other football topics. A big slate today, Pat. Lots for us to get to. The Calgary Flames taking on the Boston Bruins. Boston coming off that loss to the Leafs. But prior to that, they'd sort of looked a little bit more like the Boston Bruins with back-to-back shutouts. Boston is minus 154. We've got Pittsburgh and Carolina. Carolina, arguably the best team in the East right now, minus 270 for Carolina. And Pittsburgh right now, man, that's a team we could talk about for a little bit. They got some major issues. They are now 7th right now, although I guess they're tied. But, I mean, they're tied with Columbus. They're tied with the Islanders. They played more games. They're only ahead of the Philadelphia Flyers in the Met. Meanwhile, the Canes are rolling. They're 11-2, one of the top teams in the league. No surprise they're a big favorite tonight. So Nashville, coming off that loss last night, is right back at it, traveling from D.C. down to South Florida to play the Panthers. What's interesting about this game is that this is the first game back for the Panthers after that Finland trip. Now, listen, this team is so good and so stacked. And I mean, Maurice gets them to play each and every night. But we do always see sometimes you come back from a road trip and it takes a little bit to get going. Think about coming back from Europe. This is one of those games that I do wonder what we'll get from the Panthers. And I kind of do think that as much as I was just talking down the Predators, like their predicament makes them they have to be a desperate hockey team. I'll probably stay away from this game. I mean, Florida's a minus 200 favorite. Normally, I think you'd say, oh, this is a nice one. We could throw it on a parlay or something like that. But there are a couple things to notice about that, even with Nashville playing on the first end of the back-to-back. The Habs are in New Jersey tonight. Devils a massive favorite at minus 304. You've got Buffalo plus 166 at MSG to take on the Rangers. Rangers just under minus 200 at 198. The Ottawa Senators coming off that depressing loss for them to Buffalo earlier this week. They're back at home. They're playing the Islanders at plus 121. The Tampa Bay Lightning home to Philly. Lightning minus 213. Here's another one. We talked about Florida coming back for their first game. That's the Dallas Stars tonight. And the Stars are at home. Similar, and I guess maybe they did Florida and Dallas a favor. Okay, you guys are going to travel all the way over to Finland. When you come back, we'll put you at home for your first game, and we'll give you a team that played the night before. Chicago just lost at home to Detroit. Chicago is in Dallas tonight, and Dallas is a massive minus 334 favorite. Chicago plus 270. Utah coming off their 3-0 loss here in the Peg on Tuesday night. They are in St. Louis. It's a much closer line in this game. Utah favored on the road, which is, I don't know, a little surprising to me, minus 116. St. Louis just south of even money at minus 101. The big game here in the Peg tonight, bit of a revenge on the mind. Not that an early regular season game matches up to the playoffs, but best believe the Jets have had this one circled on their calendar since the start of the year, getting a chance to take on take on the Colorado Avalanche. Pat, while I finish these up, do me a favor, fire up DFO and get the starting goalies tonight. We can do a little.
I got them up
before we go.
I got them up already. I had a feeling you were going to ask.
Yeah, because I know that Georgiev is playing in this game, and we figured we should get to the other ones. The Canucks and Kings. Kings have had a great start. Vancouver favored though on the road, -115. Kings at -102, and then the final game of the night. The Sharks, once again, a big home dog, +220, taking on the Minnesota Wild, who just lost their second regulation game of the year, dropping a 5-1 decision to the Kings at home. Give us a rundown of who's in the pipes tonight, Patty, if you would.
Yeah, it sounds good. The Preds have Scott Wedgwood expected to start. He is unconfirmed, but Sergei Bobrovsky will be going for the Panthers. That is confirmed. The Islanders, Senators, we got Varlamov in for New York. Ottawa has Anton Forsberg ready to go. Those are both confirmed. And then in the Sabres, Rangers, Shesterkin going for the Rangers. And Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen in for the Sabres. Montebo against Markstrom in the Canadiens Devils game. And then Penguins have Nelkovic going against Kochkov for the Hurricanes. That's likely. It is not confirmed, but he's been holding down the fort while they've been dealing some injuries with Frederick Anderson. The Flames, the Bruins, both these are likely haven't been confirmed. The Bruins will be going with Korpisalo, it seems. And the Flames going with Dustin Wolf. It'll be his first back-to-back or anticipated back-to-back start. He's 4-2 with a 2.98 goals against average. He's kind of been the guy that a young guy that might be potentially taking the net here early on. So something to keep in mind going forward for them. The Flyers, it's Fedotov, and for the Lightning, it's Vasilevsky. Both of those are unconfirmed. As you mentioned, Georgiev will go for the Avs, while Hellebuck will likely start for the Jets. Connor Ingram in for Utah. For the Blues, they'll go with Joel Hofer. And with the Blackhawks, it's going to be Soderbaum. And the Stars, who else but the Otter, Jake Ottinger. Minnesota expected to go with Gustafsson. Vanacek will go for the Sharks. That's unconfirmed, though. And then for the Canucks and Kings, Vancouver will be with Lehkonen, and a Darcy Kemper expected to start for the Kings.
I was just noticing in chat, Mark was asking about Cale Makar. And Makar left the game. They thought it might have been a groin last week. John Liu, reporting from downtown right now, says Makar is taking part in the morning skate wearing the royal blue of PP1. And that power play is lethal. It's giving us all PTSD from the playoffs. Makar, McKinnon, Rantanen, Middlestat, and Lehkonen. So that's interesting. I kind of thought that based on, you hear a groin, he wasn't able to come back. He's probably not playing, but giving it a go today. So, and Jared Bednar said yesterday that he's okay and has a possibility to play tomorrow night. I think considering that he's out there for the morning skate and everything, Pat, we should expect Cale Makar in.
Yeah, we should expect that. You mentioned the power plays. Well, if you're going to talk about power plays, you got to talk about the Jets' power play. It is at a historic clip. And believe it or not, right now, power play goals, the over-under set at 1.5, the over and the under actually -118. I think that might be the bet of the century. I think each team might be able to score 2 power play goals tonight. Never mind
it's the top 2 power play teams in the league.
Yeah.
Like the Jets are running at 44, and I think the Avs are running at 37.
Yeah, and you've seen how the officials have called a lot. Like the refs have not shied away from the whistle early on in this season. So I think that might be my favorite bet, not just, like I said, not just of this slate tonight, but maybe the bet of the year. Over 1.5 power play goals between these two wagons of a man advantage.
Interesting. Okay, so there you got. That's just the final prop. Just while we're talking about this game here for a minute, the goal scorers, the Superman Nate McKinnon -104, Kyle Connor plus 125, Rantanen 127, Velarde 185, Scheifele 185. Where's Ehlers? Ehlers and Letkinen 2-1. And then there's a kind of a big drop off. You got Middlestat at plus 265, Niederreiter at 275. I mean, just on this game, and I'm just gonna pull up the lines for the Avalanche because it's been wild looking at their roster each and every night. I mean, part of the reason why they are where they are is that they're missing so many guys. I mean, out right now, Landeskog, who's apparently had a setback, not sure what that means for him. Nichushkin hasn't played yet, but he's rejoined the team. He's practicing. Miles Wood is on IR. Colton is on IR. Both of those guys were very impactful in the playoffs last year. Drouin also on IR. And then Cale Makar day-to-day. But as I say, we expect Cale Makar to be playing tonight, considering what we're just hearing from John Liu and the rest of the media down at the building. For player points, every time I just laugh at these McKinnon numbers.
It's crazy.
One time it was like minus 1,300. At what point is it just not even offered? If you don't think McKinnon will get a point, though, I mean, I think that's where the bet is. Like, you got to find the night where he doesn't score. He doesn't get an assist. Plus 490 for McKinnon and plus 285 for Rantanen to not get points tonight. Minus 904, minus 424, respectively. Kyle Connor, who's been a point machine, he's at minus 229, plus 167 on the other side.
Huss, how about it's minus 110 for McKinnon under 1.5 points? That's insane, dude. Like, that is just nuts.
That's got to be. I think the Jets are going to be very ready for this game.
I think so too.
I'll say this. Now, listen, I mean, they're 12-13. They're going to lose some games at some point. But I think about something that Scott Arniel said after the game against Utah. And he was talking about, where they've been, the consistency. They had a great defensive effort. I mean, they really didn't give up much to Utah. And he said, we know who's coming in these next couple of games. Colorado and Dallas, huge Central Division games. They're ready to make a statement tonight. Maybe I will make my hella bet tonight. And instead of taking an under on the team total, have the Stones to pony up and go under 0.5 point for McKinnon at plus 490 or Rantanen at plus 285. We'll get to those. As I say, we'll definitely get into those a little bit more on Winnipeg Sports Talk, put together a WST parlay as well, which we'll fire over and get up a little later on. But Patty, right off the bat, is there a game or two? If we were putting together a little partner parlay here, what's catching your eye?
Off the hop, this Calgary Bruins game at the very top of the tab kind of jumps out to me. And maybe I've got my Maple Leaf blinders on right now, but after watching 2 games, Toronto Maple Leafs play against the Bruins, like this is not the big bad Bruins of the past. Like, this team, I just don't think is that good of a hockey team. Do they make the playoffs? Probably, but I think they'll be battling for a wild card spot. And the Calgary Flames have been, I mean, not world beaters by any stretch of the imagination, but they've been off to a pretty decent start. The fact that you're able to get the Flames, and I know they're coming to Boston at plus 130, just this line to me, I think you're getting some really good value on the Flames against a Bruins team that just doesn't look like themselves at all. So I kind of like the Flames here. I hate the puck line, but I mean, the Penguins are just, and again, maybe this is me being a Leafs, Leaf fan and fading Dubas here and loving every second of that. But, Hurricanes, because if we're putting into a parlay, maybe we go regulation, but the Penguins are awful, man. The Penguins are terrible, and the Hurricanes, doesn't matter who's in net right now. This is a good hockey team as well. So those are the 2 that jump out to me immediately. I already said I really like the over in the power plays in the Avs Jets. So I'd say those are probably my top 3 favorite hockey bets for tonight.
I'm on the other side of you in this Boston-Calgary game, and I'll tell you why. I think that like Boston, you're right. Boston isn't that team that they've been before, but they're sort of coming around. And it was credit to the Leafs for stepping up the way they did and played the way they did on Tuesday night. And I think that's just showing growth and, good on Craig Berube for giving his guys some confidence and getting going. And I think they're building on that. But Boston in those previous 2 games had back-to-back shutouts. And that's more, they were leaking goals. And they'd given up 8 spot to Carolina the week before. So against some of the lesser teams, I think Boston is getting it done. And I do think Calgary is that team. Like, they've got, I think, 2 wins in their last 7. They had a great game against New Jersey. They shut them out, and then they beat the Habs in OT. But other than that, they lost to the Oilers, 5-1 to Utah. They got shut out by Vegas. They lost 5-3 to the Jets, and they got lost 4-2 to the Hurricanes. So I just think that we're kind of getting the water, falling to the level, and that's sort of where I think Calgary is right now. So I'd have a tough time backing them on the road against Boston. The Carolina pick's interesting, and Carolina in reg -159. I don't mind that one at all. We talked about these 2 games with Florida and Dallas. Normally you'd probably, Dallas would be a team you'd probably go on the puck line, but Dallas has not been great as a massive favorite this year. Mm-hmm. I remember we took Dallas on a puck line against the Sharks at home, and they ended up winning in a shootout earlier this year. So I think those 2 games, just considering they're coming back from Finland, I think maybe we'll take a pause on those guys. You know who I think I'm looking for a big bounce back game tonight from is the Ottawa Senators. And the Sens are at home. They're a short favorite at -143. They have been up, down, up, down. I think this is the time that they go up. They just didn't really show up for that game against Buffalo. And I think Travis Green wasn't really very happy about it. And we've seen after some tough losses that they've had, they've actually bounced back with really good performances. They lost a real tough one to the Avalanche after the Golden Knights game that I was at that they could have won that. They were right there at the end of the game, and Vegas does what they do in the last 5 minutes. They come back from that and smash St. Louis 8-1. They lost a tough 2-1 game to the Rangers, and they came back and beat Seattle at home. And they have actually been really good at home. Their last 3 games at home, 3-0 over the Kraken, 8-1 over the Blues, and 5-4 over the Lightning. And they're 4-1 in their last 5 at home. 5-1 at home. They've beaten Panthers. They beat the Kings. Their only loss this year at home is to the Devils at 3-1. I think Travis Green is going to have these guys ready to go tonight. And on the other side of it, Barzal been hurt. As we've talked about the Islanders before, occasionally, but they just seem to be one of the most just mid teams in the league. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they're okay. They beat Pittsburgh in their last time out. They lost to the Rangers. They beat the Sabres, lost to the Blue Jackets, lost to the Ducks, lost to the Panthers. This team's just sort of in the middle. So I really do like Ottawa just on the money line here at -143, even though they've had some nice games so far this year. And then take a look at this Utah-St. Louis game. I'll say this. I saw Utah here in person on Tuesday night. They were pretty good. They didn't give the Jets a lot, but man, they had a tough time. It was sort of a defensive standstill for the most part. Teams feeling them out for the first couple of periods. St. Louis, though, has had some kind of weird games, but they've been a lot better at home. And look at this. They're at home. They're coming off 2 straight wins over Tampa Bay and over Toronto. Their last road trip sucked. They beat the Leafs in that one game that we all thought was going to be a big comeback game for the Leafs after they lost to St. Louis the first time. But then lost to the Habs, got destroyed by the Sens, and lost to Philly. But then, as I said, got back at it against 2 pretty good teams at home. As far as Utah goes, just looking at their recent play, they were shut out without a ton of offense at all. And I mean, they've won 1 of their last 7, losing to Vegas. They beat Calgary 5-1 and then had losses to San Jose, LA, Avalanche, and Sens before that. So I don't know whether this is mixed up or it's just a good line. But if you're telling me that the St. Louis Blues are minus 102 at home, coming off wins against Tampa and Toronto, and Utah is laying minus 115, I'm going to take the home dog in the St. Louis Blues. So I think Ottawa and St. Louis, I think, are the teams that I like the most at the numbers right now. If we're thinking about the partner parlay, Patty.
Well, I mean, Huss, you said it. They're 2-0 against the Leafs, and based off the 2 games that I've watched, heck, I would have believed that this team's a Stanley Cup contender because that's how damn good they looked against the Leafs in those 2 games. But in all seriousness, the way you laid it out, I'm not against that, and definitely the way that you laid out that Senators game, I'm kind of leaning towards that as well. Obviously, we won't go. We won't go head to head because we're both on the opposite sides of the other games. But if we want to go with those 2 and then the Hurricanes in regulation, I think that could definitely, we could definitely cook with something there.
Canes in reg, Ottawa and St. Louis plus 448. We're probably looking at close to 5-1 with the boost.
I like that.
We're in on that.
Yep.
Okay, let's do it. There we go.
I might put something together for Patty. Patty knows puck with that over 1.5 power play goals because I just love that one so much. I don't know if we necessarily have a bet for this game, but I wanted to bring this up. I don't know if you saw news coming out of Philadelphia, but Mishkov is a healthy scratch for tonight's game.
Torts time.
Torts has decided, okay, we're deep enough in the season where I can start making everything about me and turning this thing into a circus. What are we doing here? What are we doing here? I don't understand it. I know the team is struggling, but hey, the team is a bad team. It's not a good team. Michkov is leading the league in scoring for rookies. I get it. He's probably not playing the 200-foot game that Torts wants. But on what planet should this kid be a healthy scratch? That's just unbelievable.
You got to teach the young ones a lesson early in their career, Pat. They'll be better for it in the long run.
Unbelievable, man.
So yeah, Philly, this is what happens. You finally officially arrive at 8th place in your 8-team division. You shake things up by benching your prize rookie for a game tonight. So I'm not sure if Jake is in the chat right now, but we'll get that over. Let me just, for those of you that are listening on the live stream, we got some great juicy tidbits from Rod Z. Oh, and some nice comments on the haircut. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, it was time for some helmet reduction. Rod Z says, bet on Winnipeg on the money line as a favorite. Winnipeg record during the 2025 season, 11-0. It's amazing they've been a favorite that many times.
Crazy.
Winnipeg on the money line against poor power play killing teams. Opponents score on 17.5 chances. Winnipeg record during the 2025 season, 8-0. There's a lot of great stats with the Jets right now with the season that they've had. And then Spency 5-Sensi. This is maybe the Pat Gregoire special of all time.
Yes.
Jets Avalanche over 1.5 power play goals and Cincy Baltimore over 3.5 field goals. Parlay is plus 335. You should almost do that just on its own.
I think that's what I got to do.
There, a 2-banger for 2 power play goals and 2 field goals aside in the Thursday nighters. That is great.
Yeah, that's a no doubter. Is that a good transition to this Thursday nighter? I think I'm actually really excited for this game, Haas. I don't know about you, but I really am.
Hold on a sec. Just quickly to Rod Z. Rod, it says, I'm falling for the Ottawa trap. I mean, I don't trust Ottawa a lot, but I mean, we kind of laid it out. I certainly don't trust the Islanders, and they've been great at home this year, and I kind of think that they've been shown a prevalence to step up after stinkers, and they certainly had a stinker earlier this week. Chris G says, I like Utah, Vancouver, and Jets at plus 475. And there you go. And the Blues are dealing with plenty of injuries. That actually is a good point. Let's just do a quick look at what's going on here with St. Louis. But I will say this. Buchnevich is in there. Dylan Holloway knocked up. Jake Neighbors. Kairu's in. No Robert Thomas. That's been the case for a little while.
Yeah.
I'm still riding on them. The Utah HC are having a little bit of a rough run right now. So anyways, we'll get that up. Carolina in regulation. Ottawa, St. Louis. That'll be our partner parlay. All right, let's get to this football game tonight. Thursday nighter. It's a great one. AFC North matchup. Baltimore Ravens, Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals at 4-5. Ravens at 6-3. If Cincinnati were to win this game, Pat, they could get within one game of Baltimore and would split the season series. Of course, these teams had that awesome 41-38 game earlier this year. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Joe Burrow threw for 5 touchdowns in a losing cause.
Yep.
The one thing that really sucks in this game is, once again, T. Higgins is out. And, that stupid injury at the end of practice a couple Fridays ago could be the difference between this team getting back in the playoff race and making a wild card and not. It's still 6, though, and it hasn't really wavered off of that number, Pat. Give us your thoughts on the Bengals and the Ravens. Ravens coming off an absolute dismantling of a Denver team that came to Baltimore with a pretty good defense.
You said this plenty of times, but I think it was either at the start of this year or maybe at the end of last year that you would be interested to see if you just blindly bet the underdog in this division, you probably are up money.
Yeah. And
I know I said I've quit the Bengals and I'm done betting the Bengals and believing that this is a playoff team. But 6 points in prime time in a divisional matchup for a team that is basically battling for their playoff lives, I think I lean Bengals plus 6 here. I really do. I think this is a good spot for them. I actually think this is a pretty good matchup for them. I'll kind of get into that on some of my player props, but we know that we definitely know that we saw these two teams, that they aired it out, that it was one of the better, crazier games that we saw. The Bengals defense is great. They can defend the run, but they are a nightmare passing defense. Like it has been a struggle this year. I'll get into more details as we go through our picks, but I just think that the Bengals, this could be a good matchup here. And whenever you're battling in the division, especially this specific division, these games always come down to the wire. So I'll take Bengals plus the 6, and I would almost even lean over 52. Although in sometimes these games where the two teams have gone back and forth and it's been an offensive showdown, the defensive coordinators have enough film and are able to lock things down. But I just think that there's a good chance that we see an offensive explosion. It's a lean. It's not an official play, but if I had to lean somewhere on this total, I'd be leaning the over.
Just quickly, T. Higgins did make the trip, and he is listed actually as an anytime touchdown scorer. I guess they sort of have to have that. If the guy doesn't play in the game, it's just a push, right, Pat?
Yeah.
It's certainly, I mean, everything over the course of this week was trending to have him miss. And I will say this. If you're looking for a guy that will step up or that's been seeing a ton of balls when Higgins has been out of the lineup, that guy is Mike Gesicki. Gesicki anytime touchdown scorer is plus 200. If T. Higgins is out, I think I'll be looking at Gesicki. You could do a chase and chase if you want. Chase Brown, now that Zach Moss is out, is the unquestioned number one guy. He's minus 137, and Jamar Chase is minus 137. And again, those numbers are listed knowing, like with T. Higgins with the minus 120 there on it. I would think that if he was ruled out for sure, those numbers might go up slightly. unless that they're just posting them knowing that it's unlikely that he's going to be there. But anyways, that's where things are at right now. I mean, as far as the Ravens go, like D. Henry is about as automatic as it comes. He's minus 333. Zay Flowers, who's been on fire as of late, plus 120. And Lamar Jackson at plus 138. The newcomer, Deontay Johnson, plus 250. And I couldn't help but notice, second game. And again, from a passing standpoint, Mahomes is a different beast than Lamar. But it was interesting that in game 2, DeAndre Hopkins very much involved in the passing game and maybe a bit more of a red zone target than Deontay Johnson. But that guy is such a great route runner. A primetime game against a big rival, wouldn't be surprised if they sort of try and get a few more balls to him and make him feel a part of it right out of the way, considering he's basically going to be eating into a ton of what was there for Rashad Bateman after the tight ends get it, Derrick Henry gets it, Lamar does what he does on the ground.
Yeah, it's so true. It feels, and I mean, even if you look at the Buffalo Bills, Amari Cooper's second game, that's where he really had a big explosion as well. So, I mean, you could also look to Zay Flowers now that when you look at that receiving core, maybe that frees up more space for him to continue to have, a really, really strong showing. But I think you lay out a really good case. While we're on, I guess, the topic of the Ravens and their offense, I really like Mark Andrews over 3.5 receptions, minus 154. So maybe that's more of a parlay piece. But his anytime touchdown is also at plus 200. He was off to just a very, very slow start. I think it was the emergence of Likely, but they also were really using him more in blocking scenarios. But since week 5, he has the second most receptions on the team. In those previous 5 weeks, he didn't have a single red zone target. Now he's scored touchdowns in his last 4 of the last 5 games, and has had 6 in his last 5. The Bengals also struggle to defend tight ends, giving up 5.6 receptions per game, and are ranked second in most touchdowns against a tight end. So I'm going to go Andrews over 3.5 receptions for a parlay piece, I think, but also the anytime touchdown at 200 certainly seems like something that I'd be investing in here tonight.
I'm looking at the receptions as well, and I love the Gesicki number, even money at over 4.5. And I'm just pulling up to recall exactly what his numbers were in this last game against Denver. And keep in mind, Denver, that's a good that is a good defense. Gesicki ended up with Cincinnati. I keep on thinking it's we got to get back down to the Bengals versus the Raiders. We had Mike Gesicki with 5 catches, 6 targets, 100 yards. Jamar Chase last game, just to give you an idea about how Burrow distributed the ball, 11 targets to Chase, 6 targets to Gesicki, but he averaged 20 on them. A few short ones, a 47-yarder as well. And then Iosivas had 4, Drew Sample had 4, and Chase Brown had 4, and then a bunch of other guys in a combination of 1 or 2. So you have to think that Joe Burrow is going to have to be throwing the football. I mean, last week he threw 39 times. I think he's going to be throwing over 40, over 40 times tonight. As far as the player passing, the completions number on Joe Burrow is 24.5. I think that number will probably go over based on what we were talking about. Like, if he threw that much against the Raiders in a game that they were comfortably ahead, what's it going to be like in a game that they're going to have to put up if they want to win this game in the 30s, absolute minimum tonight?
Mm-hmm. That was one of my favorite bets, because everyone talks about how good the Ravens are running the ball. They might be even better at defending the run. Like, they've only giving up right now 75.7 rushing yards per game and 3.4 rushing per play. That's by far the best in the NFL. But They are dead last in passing yards against per game at 301.8, and their opponent passing QBR is 100.7. That's sixth worst in the NFL. I think Burrow is a perfect matchup. We saw it the last time the two teams play again. I really think they're going to be really struggle to run the ball. So they're just going to heavily rely on Burrow and this receiving core. I think it's a great matchup. We saw it last game, and I just feel like this is a big moment for Burrow. In these big moments, he comes up big. So give me the over 24.5 completions at even money, 100%. And I probably will even be betting his over yards at 273.5 as well. So give me that as well.
All right. Well, listen, why don't we let's put something together for the Thursday nighter tonight. Why don't we start it off with Joe Burrow over 24.5 completions? We just talked about that. It's minus 110. When we're speaking about the receptions, and I'm just going to put this back to that Ravens game last week again, just to see exactly what we had. Because I'm not sure. Let's see. Yeah, DeAndre Johnson did not really factor in at all. Didn't play. So this will be his first game. Minus 133 on 2 catches.
Okay, I like that.
I mean, I think like if we were talking 3 or 4, I think that's a bit. But I mean, if I'm Harbaugh, I want to get him involved in this offense. And I mean, 1.5 receptions, I don't think is too much to think about. I think, in fact, they probably have a few plays I would suggest early on in the game, specifically focused on just getting the ball in his hands and getting a little bit of chemistry going with Lamar. So if you're cool with that, let's throw that one on, and then let's get another one. Do you want to go with something else from the Bengals side of things, or we've got the Burrow completions? Deontay Johnson on the Ravens side of things.
I like either of the tight ends. You mentioned how you like Gesicki. I mentioned how I like Andrews. I like both of them. I really do. I'm going to play them anyways, but I mean, I would not be.
The number on Andrews. The number on Andrews is one less, and it's only minus 120. And I know, speaking of that game, like what did Andrews do last game? He had 2 catches. Well, he had 2 catches only on 2 targets. But again, that's a game that they won by 31. And like I said, these are the games that Andrews gets involved in a hell of a lot more.
Yeah, exactly. This is it. Like this is like again, I know the Bengals defense has been pitiful, but it's gotten better. And you're right. It's a big moment. It's a big game. His numbers have gone up significantly over the last 5 weeks, or 4 weeks, I should say. I'd kind of lean that. I would be okay with that. You mentioned, hold on, what do we see here? Did that line? Yeah, actually, geez, Huss, that line is moved. It was like minus 150 something earlier today. So
which one?
It's
Andrews.
The Andrews. Yeah, it was like it was minus 154 earlier today. So kind of surprised to see that go down. Maybe some people are fading Andrews for some reason. So.
I mean, the other one, if we wanted to look at, I mean, I think Chase Brown probably easily gets his 4 catches, but again, we're talking about minus 161. So why don't we go with this? Like if we put Burrow over 24.5, Deontay to get 2 or more catches, Andrews 4 or more catches, comes up to plus 513. We had a beauty one we put together on the Monday Nighter. Let's make it 2 for 2 this week, Pat.
I love it. I love that. Like I said, like I am super, super fired up for this game. I think we could be in for an absolute classic. We had a stinker the last Thursday nighter. I feel like it's been a couple weeks since we had a good Thursday nighter, and anytime these two teams get together, it's always going to be fireworks.
Guaranteed it will be better than the Jets Houston. Despite Garrett Wilson's heroics in the second half to save their season and make that game worth watching. No, I think this will be a good one. Massive total, 52.5.
Crazy.
They put up 79 the last time they played. So I'm not sure if we'll see that much different. This is going to be, listen, we're going to find out a lot about what Joe Burrow can do with a diminished lineup and get some other guys involved other than just Jamar Chase. There's going to be a lot of balls in the air. I don't mind a Lamar touchdown as well, by the way, if you're looking for just a single prop at plus 138. But we'll get these up in the exclusives, either in the combo cards or probably in the exclusives under the lock shop. Burrow over 24.5. Johnson over 1.5. Andrews over 3.5 receptions and completions for Joe Burrow. And then we'll throw up our hockey play. Carolina in regulation. Ottawa, St. Louis tonight. We'll throw those up as well. Patty, tomorrow, get ready to go. House callers, best bets of the week. Week 10 in the NFL. It should be a great one. Hey, before we go, if you missed the last couple shows, do not forget, Lock Shoppers. If you are betting hockey, hit the promotions page, opt in on the Four Nations contest, and for every $20 you bet on hockey, you'll get a ticket in the raffle for an unbelievable trip to Boston for the championship game of the Four Nations Cup. And as I said, if any of you Lock Shoppers win and are needing someone to go with, I am 100% available for that. Very simple, but just make sure you're opted in so it's counting your bets as they go along. Great night of hockey. Check out the odds. We got a Thursday nighter, awesome football game. It's going to be a fun one. And I can't wait already for tomorrow when we get the boys back together for our Friday best bets for the NFL. Patty, thanks so much for doing this. As always, gang, good luck tonight. Enjoy it. We'll see you in the DGen Den and the Discord as well. And have a great one. Big WST coming up tonight. Lots of Bomber Rider talk. And, of course, Jets Avalanche tonight over on Winnipeg Sports Talk. In the meanwhile, EST programming continues coming up next.